Go ahead.
Hi, welcome to the Survivor Washington Orting post-show recap for episode 9. It's episode 9, right?
Yes.
All right, cool. We're my name is Brett. I was one of the on the bottom tier level of players of Survivor Washington history, but I'm really good at talking shit. With me is Jaden Osborne, who's an associate producer of some sort,
Associate producer?
and yeah, and a dear friend. And then we
Oh.
also have Heather Cannon, who is very insightful with her commentary as a fan, and we hope that she might compete someday.
Oh God, you keep saying that. I'll be so bad.
It's okay. We'll,
You can't do worse than me though.
I mean, she could.
I could. There are 5 spots that are worse.
It's okay.
You
Even
could
if
be
you go out.
the next tornado.
Yeah. Even if you go out and you're terrible, we'll just talk you up on the recap and just pretend that you were doing amazing.
Yeah.
We'll be in a band. That was a really good intro, Brett. That was so much better than the ones I do.
Thank you.
I think you have to do it permanently now. I'm
You
palming
told me
this
you
off
were
to
going
you
to give me
forever.
thumbs up, and then your hands were not on screen. You just nodded, and I'm like, that's not a thumbs up.
Well, it's fine.
I a minute of panic when I was like, wait, was I spacing out when they designated me as the intro person?
Oh, okay. I should have just told you both to do it. Alrighty. So we're going to be talking through the episode 9. If you guys have any comments, just leave them in the comment bar beside, and we'll get to them at the end of the episode. But for now, let's get into it. So we open up, and then it's Lindsay and Emma recapping Stefan and Kitty's votes and talking about what they felt about it. Lindsay's sitting on a bucket, and she basically almost falls off. There was someone in the YouTube comments that commented the timestamp and then Michelle Yee, when she's calling out the platform and she falls off.
It's my favorite.
I thought that was really funny. And then Kaya gives a confessional. Well, Kaya and Lindsay both give confessionals saying that they're super happy to be here on day 3 and they never thought they would make it. They're just really proud of their efforts. And then you get
Emma made it to final 2 with with the talks they're giving.
Mm-hmm. And then you get a Emma confessional right after them saying how they doubted themselves, being I knew I would make it to the end. So that was funny.
Of course.
But no, even I remember my preseason predictions because I got to see the cast list and everything before they all went out. I was way off. I was kind of with Kaya and Lindsay thinking that Kitty was my winner pick. I didn't think Kaya and Lindsay would last. So to actually see them make it to the end, it was really a nice pleasant surprise, and I was happy.
See, I thought Kaya was gonna be a first boot, early boot. I thought Lindsay was gonna do well. She has.
Well, Kaya talked a lot about pre-game interviews and stuff that she herself thought she was going to be first boot. So I was like,
she said she was a pathological liar. So it's or in high school she was. So she made herself come off someone who would flame out very early.
I wish I knew her in high school.
Well, she was lying about going to be the first boot, so that's fine. That makes sense.
Her last lie.
Yeah. Erica gets a confessional where basically she just recaps that her and Emma have this big bond. And then Emma in one confessional says that basically she's too big of a threat to try to go against. What do you guys think about it? Well, yeah. Obviously that wasn't correct.
No, honey, no.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys, what did you think of that?
She's not Russell Hands with just unless it's, Septera.
I feel the only threats that are too big to go out after are ones that have a super idol or something like that, or maybe Kim Spradlin where you have a lot of sheep. But no, I think the people in this game are too aware to not have someone in this game that's untouchable.
And she's not that powerful. The only reason why she survived the second vote after the merge was because she had an idol. They already got together the votes to vote her out. And it's not she controls everyone. You could argue maybe that she controls Erica and Sarah, although I don't think they're just total sheep. They may be going along with her, but I don't think they're just blindly following her.
Well, she
So I
doesn't.
don't know where
Well,
she got that
Sarah.
impression from, but I do not think add it to the list of things that Emma has said about herself that made us go, is that true though?
Well, Sarah voted against her, so she doesn't. She definitely doesn't
Yeah.
have Sarah under her thumb. Set your
Right.
baby
And that
vote.
was like her alliance. It was basically just those two.
I think Emma felt as comfortable as she did at the time because of how much faith that she had in Lindsay, per the conversation that she had with her and Sarah in the aftermath of the idol play. That she just felt, okay, I'm sure that, like, you know, player recognizes player, and I'm sure that Emma recognized that Lindsay was another very big presence on the tribe, and so she felt as long as she was in good standing with Lindsay and that she had faith in that connection, that she was good. And unfortunately, Lindsay pulled one over on her.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think she ever should have put that much trust back in Lindsay. Maybe
No,
I
but
think working on getting her to be an ally again was a good idea, was the right idea. I don't think it was an inherently bad move to show her the idol. I'm still kind of I'm not really decided if that was the right move or not. But because I don't think her showing the idol was the reason why they targeted her. But I think trying to bring her back in as an ally is a good idea, assuming that you have her as an ally when she's tried to vote you out is not as much a good idea.
Yeah. And I think especially once people have already gathered the votes to blindside you, like, I'm gonna want to keep you in the game because they've done something wrong to you. I think you've got to be really careful of. She obviously misplayed by not playing her idol this round. I think a lot of times in Survivor generally they'll go, they'll try to blindside someone, and then they'll go for like a simple vote, and then like big alliances only really last one simple vote. So I think she should have maybe been on her guard after the Kitty vote. But that's right. We go through to the Connor confessional. Connor's like very, very self-aware, but also like so mean to himself. Like he's just really, really hard on himself. Basically, he says the theme of his game is that he just like lucks into good situations. And he's got these really, really good reads, which I agree with, but he just can't really put them into action. Like, what do you guys think about like Connor and Connor's game at the moment?
Heather?
I mean, I guess you could say this is jumping ahead a bit with predictions, but I kind of think that's going to turn out to be sort of the story of the season. I think what it's going to come down to is Lindsay versus Connor and whether or not Connor is able to evolve as a character and get to the point where he can persuade people to do what he needs to do. Because I think he's going to know that Lindsay needs to go out. And what it's going to come down to is whether or not he's a better player, Lindsay's better player, really. I kind of feel like he's going to be able to do it. But I do, yeah, I've just loved watching Connor play so much. And I do think he is a very good assessment overall. It's just kind of the self-depreciating stuff that it's like, it goes too far, but he has the right reads. I think he needs a little bit more confidence.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's right in all of his reads except for his read about himself. Like he says that he's dead in the water and can't win, and I don't necessarily believe that. Like I think there's definitely pathways for him to win, but evidently he's just seemingly given up on that.
Yeah, I mean, he says he can't win, but like he's still trying to. I feel like that's kind of freeing him in a way when he's not really so caught up on the idea. He's just like, oh, I can't win, but I'm gonna try anyways. I feel like that almost could help in a way that you're not so stressed out about it and that you're just kind of trying without having as much expectation. Because when you have that expectation, you may get nervous, you may overanalyze things, especially when thinking, oh my God, this could happen. What if I do this? And what if this happens? And so I think the fact that I think it's keeping him more as a rational player.
Yeah, I agree. I think Brett's house is on fire.
Oh no.
Oh god. Okay, I hope he's okay. Anyway, he may or may not come back. Also, welcome back. Everything okay?
I'm baking cookies because I forgot tomorrow's Halloween and I had to bring stuff into work for like a potluck. So I just like threw this dough I had made last night into the oven and cooked it off, and the timer went off, and I was like, I can't wait on this. Like I have to go. So I just took it out of the oven. It's fine. It'll be good for the rest of the show. They're just cooling off. What I wanted to say previously was that I think Connor, being very self-deprecating in how he speaks about himself, I think there is a certain modicum of truth to it, because up until, let's see, at that point in the game, there were 7 people. He had a very major moment with the Wes episode, but outside of that, he hadn't necessarily been steering the action, and he's had to sit back a bit. However, he is the most like woke person this episode, because he starts to think about, okay, what happened during swap? It was supposed to be 3-3 on Wilkeson, but then that's not how that happened. And then since then, Sean went out, and then since then, Stefan got idled out, and now Kitty's gone. And so like he's kind of like going through the numbers, and he, while he's had to like rely a lot on Kaya being a liaison between him and Lindsay, he's waiting for the numbers to dwindle to the point where he can start asserting himself more, because when there's 8 people left, 7 people left, he's still a very small fraction of the tribe, and he doesn't his influence is not as far reaching as he would like for it to be, despite how astute he is, and despite how good his reads have been. And so I think he's just like biding his time at this point. As far as him thinking that he didn't have a chance to win at that point, it's just because everyone else is thinking about like how their resumes are building, and Connor realizes, I have one really good heist on my resume, that is the West boot, but other than that, I don't really have that much going for me. And so he needs more of these like big heists in order to truly build a resume. At the moment, what he's building is an underdog narrative, and so hopefully we get to see him start to be able to act on his instincts, instead of just like having the analytical skills but not being able to implement anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think all he needs on his resume is just getting Lindsay out. I think that could do it. But Brett, just so you know, I looked at the YouTube link, and your video is doing the same thing again, where it's like,
God damn it. Okay, I don't.
Yeah.
I can totally drop. I don't know how to fix it.
I don't know if you want to try leaving and coming back and seeing maybe if that fixes it, but I just wanted to let you know, so it's not just full episode and we didn't try any.
Yeah, sure thing. I'll be back.
Heather's on the case. Thank you. No, I agree with what Brett said. The only thing I was going to say is that I really contributed the West blindside more to even Sean. So I don't even know if, because I feel like Sean was the one that kind of turned else in the tribe, like Emma and Sarah and all that, against Wes. But I don't know. Fair enough. Anyway, I agree though that I think with everything basically that he said. Welcome, Brett. You are.
Why won't it turn?
Yeah, I was gonna say it now.
Okay, there it goes. It wouldn't turn originally. Now I'm fine.
That's right. Yeah, you were talking about Connor gave a confessional as well, where he basically recapped. It was like a very elaborate reasoning for why he believes that Setu and Emma are still together, and he said basically what happened with your vote and how he went through every single vote so far post merge and said that they've always voted together. But the B-roll for this conversation is him and Setu talking to the well. And I'm pretty sure Setu just says outright, like, her and I are like super tight. So I don't know. I thought it was funny because he gave all this like big reasoning, and then you cut to the B-roll and like Setu just like straight up admits. Maybe he wasn't talking about Emma, but it sounded like Setu just kind of that he and Emma are tight. So I don't know. I just noticed that when I watched it. But he also says, Connor gives kind of a pitch to Setu and says, like, if I can just hang on to your coattails and ride them, that's the best place for me. Like, I'll vote however you want to vote. Which I didn't know if I liked that as a pitch or not. I thought that was a bit maybe transparent, just because if I'm Setu, I know that Connor's like a fan, and what kind of fan would just like openly acknowledge that they're riding coattails? Usually coattail riders aren't self-aware. So that would have been a red flag for me.
I think that, what do you think, Heather?
I think if there's already this perspective that's been acknowledged that he's like least deserving to be there, kind of seen as like this passive player, then if it's coming off more as like he knows that his best case scenario is being dragged to the end as a goat, like since he's kind of come off as so like self-aware and it's an acknowledged thing, that he's not really respected in the game. That I think from that perspective, he could try to make the pitch of like, no, look, I know I can't win, but like, let me be your goat at the end. I don't know if that's exactly what he was doing, but I think there's a way to go about it that doesn't like inherently raise flags.
Mm. I mean, it obviously didn't because Setu trusted him. So, but I don't know. I just thought when watching that, I thought that would have alarmed me if someone told me that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's granted, we've seen Setu up to this point. We have the confessional last time from Connor that Setu's like a corpse and hasn't really done anything. Lots of people have said, oh, I have Setu under my thumb. Setu will do whatever I want. And so people the entire season seem to be making these comments. Setu's loyalty, but combined with because he doesn't have autonomy over his own actions, that he's very malleable, that he would easily bend to the will of most of these players, which speaks to some sort of intellectual lack of capability. So I thought it was an interesting approach for Connor to kind of flip the script where Setu's been subservient to a lot of people on the cast, and for Connor to go and say, like, I'll be subservient to you, actually. Like, I think that, like, we haven't seen Setu try to lead a brigade necessarily or be the head of an alliance or anything like that. And Connor's just like, okay, well, you know what? I'll defer to you in this case. So I think I didn't find it cringeworthy as much as I found it intriguing. Whether it was going to work or not, I wasn't certain.
Yeah, I mean, part of that too is that, like, it got back to Setu that Lindsay kind of thought she had him in her pocket, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he knows that people have this perception of him. So what Connor could be doing is just trying to make him feel better about himself by going into him and trying to make him feel the opposite way of the way that other people have made him feel. Like, people have made him feel like they don't respect him as a player and just think of him as someone that they can use. And so if he's going up to him and making him feel like he's in control of someone else and that he's making the decisions that someone else is going along with him, then that may make him feel better as a player. And people generally want to keep around the other players who would just make them feel better in general. So that could
100%.
be
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the next thing that we get to is after the opening credits, Sarah's probably the main person to talk here. And she kind of lays out like all of her alliances and says that she's got something going on with Lindsay, something going on with Emma, something going on with both of them. And I'm like, this is good. You've got like options and stuff. But then she follows that up with, I feel like I'm in a pretty terrible position and they're all trying to vote me out now, which comes out of nowhere. And that's not like, I think it's good to have that kind of back of your mind, but that's not anything close to what's happening. So Sarah, I don't think has maybe the most accurate read on the game at the moment. What did you guys think about that?
Yeah, that was rough. I feel for Sarah. She's just a little overwhelmed, I think. It's kind of, I don't feel like she had the best like people to work with in terms of like offsetting each other, because I think her and Emma are just such extremes that they're beyond the point of balancing each other out. Because I think if she had someone who would at least entertain her paranoia a little bit, but still ultimately calm her down, then I think that would help her. But instead, she had Emma, who just is like the most confident person and thinks that any kind of suspicion about anything is just like unjust paranoia. And I think when you have someone like that as a partner, I think it's going to make you more anxious than less. So I honestly think that's her biggest problem, is that she just wasn't able to find someone who was like a good partner for her in the game.
Yeah, I think that's a good read on it, Heather. I definitely think that like Saranoia was real. I think she should get t-shirts that say Saranoia. She should, like the hashtag Dornado, she should hashtag Saranoia. Back when I was on pre-swap and post-swap, she never particularly seemed like she was flailing as far as paranoia was concerned. There were people out to get her. I was one of them before we swapped, and she always seemed chill. If not, she was lacking in self-confidence, but she didn't seem like she was rattled, or she didn't read like someone who was playing from the bottom. She seemed relatively calm and mellow at the time. Now at this point, I think that Heather has the right read here, where it's for another paranoia spin, it's paranoia, Pair anoia, where I think she's kind of realizing that she doesn't have that one stay true, ride or die individual that a lot of the other players have. Like they have their one go-to person, and she's good with multiple groups, it seems, but she doesn't have that number one. She's looking for that never say die attitude from one person, that sisterhood or that companionship, and she just hasn't received it. And because she doesn't have 100% loyalty from a particular individual, she feels like she has zero in the case of the group at large.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think
I don't even think she needs like a close pair. I think she just needs someone to bounce ideas off of and just to like entertain what she has to say. It doesn't have to be someone who considers her number one, but it's just when you have people who are so straightforward and so it is what it is, like Erica and especially Emma, that it's like they won't even entertain what your thought, rather than someone who is a little less extreme, who will like at least think through it, but then explain with them why they don't think it's a thing, rather than just be like, nope, everything's fine. You're just paranoid. Which is like that confessional from Emma, which is like, yep, we're all voting for Sit too. We can be done here now. Like it's when how do you work with someone like that when you have any levels of anxiety at all? Because she doesn't have like the emotional ability to work with someone like that. And so when it's fine to be a little anxious because you have to be anxious in the game or you're going to get blindsided with an idol in your pocket. But when you're anxious and you don't have anyone to talk through it with and like think through it with from a different perspective, then it's just going to get worse and worse because you're going to be so in your own head. So I don't think she may have been worried about having a pair, but I don't think she needed a pair. She just needed some sort of allies who are working with her like at all.
Well, furthermore, to be dictated to say like, oh, please avoid talking to these certain individuals on the team. Mm-hmm. And she received that instruction. And she was not okay with that, but I think she complied more or less. Like that is more fuel to the fire of my options are limited because now I'm being instructed not to even talk to certain people.
Yeah. No, I agree. Back to the pair thing though, Brett, because you were with both of them, do you think Wes kind of filled that role of her like pair, or was that maybe not the case?
I don't think so, because before we swapped and Wes was in hot water and hadn't realized it, I feel like and Sarah confirmed this herself, that I don't think that they were tight. They had a certain amount of closeness to them, but I don't think that they were tight enough for Sarah to truly stick her neck out on the line and utilize some of her social capital in order to keep him, especially when she had been hearing that, oh, well, in the West lineup, you're second, or whatever the story was that got back to Emma that she blew up. I think it was Connor and then Sarah, or Connor, Emma, and then Sarah. Either way, she was in like the first three of that whole story that circulated. And so I'm sure that wasn't going to be, that she wasn't going to stay completely true to Wes, especially given Wes is a very intense personality. Sarah's not an intense personality. Sarah's more of the meek and mild category, and she it just seems like oil and water at that point. They got along very well, but I think strategically it wasn't a beneficial pairing, if that makes sense.
I mean, is he more intense than Emma though?
Yeah, but Emma has ovaries. Difference.
One of the other things, one of the final things Sarah says in her confessional, after she mentions not talking to Connor and Kaya, she says that basically Emma has no intention of keeping the that they made, which really isn't the case. Like I feel like she was pretty on board with that, and I think that kind of led her to cutting Emma now, which I'm not sure was the best move, but we can talk about that later. It wasn't terrible, but anyway.
Right.
Oh, yes. My favorite part of the episode, I know you mentioned this in your exit interview, Press, about Setu thinking that the final tribal council was just like a challenge between the final two.
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize it took him until like the final 7 to realize that. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. What did he think Stefan was doing there at tribal council, like as the jury member? Like, It's called a
The
jury.
same thing that Sean and I were doing at Tribal Council as not jury members. Like, a bunch of us just watched, so I'm pretty sure that it was just like peanut gallery. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know. It's so funny that he's just. Oh, I don't know. It just made me so happy. And then he gives where he's like, the last challenge between me and Emma. It's going to be like the Rock and Stone Cold. It's going to be the main event, which I appreciate. I like watch wrestling, but it was so funny. I don't know.
Yeah, that was just too good.
It speaks to like Connor's confessional, where he's like, how do you kind of control Setu? One, because he's like a bit of a wild card, and two, because he doesn't even know what the end goal is here.
He addresses it on Twitter that like his fandom was like, it's a very curious fandom where he watched a lot of clips and he saw parts of Gabon when it happened. But he didn't observe enough of it to really understand the overall game format, but enough to understand Rob Sesternino voting someone off and singing.
Yeah, he gives like the most obscure reference as well.
Yeah,
but he's never
super fan references, but like not. It's funny because it's like he skipped the casual phase of being a Survivor viewer and went straight to super fan, but like didn't have like the bare bones casual knowledge.
Yeah,
he just skipped a grade.
Yeah, well, today he retweeted my tweet about calling Natalie Aniston the greatest first-time player turned winner in Modern Survivor. So clearly, there's been an evolution in his fandom.
He said
not a bad
Washington.
Opinion,
thank God.
Not a bad opinion.
Yeah,
well, I would say an objectively correct opinion.
I agree. Well, he said in the YouTube comments that since this filmed in like July of this year, he said that he claims he's gone through and watched Borneo through Millennials versus Gen X in that time.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I trolled him a little bit. I trolled him for a hot second on that because he said that he lists his 3 favorite seasons as Cambodia, Cagayan, and Micronesia. And I go, oh my gosh, Setu, Micronesia is one of my favorite seasons too. Don't you just love that season where all the women band together, weaponize the men, and then dispose of them when they're no longer necessary? It's such a good season.
Oh my God.
Well, then we get to my favorite challenge of the season so far, Survivor Smorgasbord, Gross Food Eating Challenge. Yeah. What did you guys think? That was fun to watch.
I feel like Hunter was just in his prime with this. Like, this is really just, this whole Survivor Washington thing was just like an elaborate ruse for him to like just bring meat in and just talk about people eating meat.
There were some last minute additions to that challenge because I think that there were, like, I know associate producer Sadie Snyder had to make an emergency run to the grocery store to get the last few items. But yeah, so there were some last minute additions as far as the food, as far as the menu is concerned.
Where did they get the pig heart? Do I want to know?
A local grocery store.
Like, where? Who sells that? Who's just like, you know what? I'm in the mood for some pig heart. Like,
the huntsman from Snow White was able to get one, so I feel like it's not that difficult.
Like, why is it not more difficult? Like, where's the market for this?
And people are doing some sacrifices somewhere.
Gross food challenges, obviously.
Yeah. Oh man. So Kaya wins this she's a vegan, isn't she? She's not even just a vegetarian, she's a vegan.
Yeah, she said she doesn't eat any animal products.
I know, it's really annoying.
Which is, yeah.
It was like, what's
the only thing I don't like about Kaya?
Yeah, well, that's what, I think it was like Lindsay was like, just pretend it's a hot dog. And she's like, I don't eat hot dogs.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I was just like, that doesn't really help for someone who doesn't eat meat. And also, most people consider hot dogs to be gross. So
my favorite thing,
probably less gross.
I loved right after she won, she kind of went into the bushes to like vomit, and she kind of just like veered right to the flag and like screamed it like, "Don't vomit on the flag! Don't vomit on the flag!" But it was weird because she's got like all this space where she could vomit. It was kind of like if you guys watch Bob Burgers, the scene where like Tina wants to drive and she's in the empty car park and there's only one car, and she just kind of like slowly veers into the one car. It was like that. She's got like an open field to vomit in, and she just goes like right to the flag.
Yeah.
Which I think it would have been really funny to just see them like carrying the flag into challenges, and it just got like shock upset.
Oh, I wouldn't describe that as fun.
It was funny.
More fun than
viewers.
the
It was
American
funny.
Eagle insignia on the Wilkinson flag.
Oh
But
my
what about
God.
the American Eagle one?
Oh, I was saying I think the vomit stain flag would have been an upgrade from the American Eagle insignia on the Wilkinson flag.
Fair enough. Yeah, do you guys have any more thoughts on gross food eating challenge?
I was just not expecting that. I didn't realize the resources were available to make that a thing. But I guess if there's anyone who will find a way to make a gross food challenge full meat happen, it is Hunter.
There is a market in rural Washington for that. Two things. The first is that there's a very, very tiny, impossible to see basically Brett watch where Sean and I can be seen lurking behind the bushes trying to watch the challenge. So when Hunter is commentating, you can see that there's because behind him it's just all greenery, and you can see some not green shapes lurking out the bushes behind him, and that's Sean and I trying to see what's happening. The other thing, and we've talked about this in post, where we thought it was very interesting which challenges were tournament style and which challenges. So at final 9, they had a tournament style, knocking the can off of someone's perch or whatever. And then at 8 people, which would be a great time to do something tournament style, they do touchy subjects. And then at 7, we're back to tournament style, where some people were in bouts of 2 and some people were in bouts of 3. And thought that the challenges could have been jumbled in the favor just for mathematical fairness and stuff like that, because to have two winners, to have 2 people move on in a heat against one, there only needed to be 1 loser. There's a certain amount of handicap to that. And so it was discussed that there was that maybe it should have only been bouts of 1 versus 1, whether that would have been how they do it on Big Brother, where the winner of the bout chooses the next 2 people to go up, or however else. I don't know, but I know that there was some discussion about why are some of these matchups 2 people and some of these matchups 3 people. It wasn't completely even in some people's minds, even though I feel no matter what, Kaya was so determined that Kaya wasn't going to lose to anyone no matter what the matchups were. She just was that determined. So I don't think it affected the outcome overall.
Well, yeah, that does feel like an oversight. I wondered that too. I think touchy subjects being at final 8 was just because that's a good challenge to do at night, because it's easy lit. So that's why I understand that one. We could have done the can knocking off one at final 10, swapped the final 10, final 9 challenges. I think that would have been better. I actually don't know what the challenge is next episode, but I'm assuming it's not tournament style. We could swap those.
I don't think I remember. I don't remember.
Speaking of challenges, can I just make one small interjection because I just remembered? So on the exit interview last night, Hunter decided to throw some misplaced shade, saying that this was before you were here, Brett, so it's your vote off episode. But he was saying that we thought that Sean genuinely outran Emma.
No, that's why we were joking about it.
And he was talking about us, saying we thought that, but we did not. We were talking about how it must have come off to everyone else that he lapped her.
Yeah.
So you're wrong, Hunter.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on to
fact check that.
moving on to what's that background noise?
Oh, my roommate's cooking. I'm sorry. I can go. I'm gonna go to my room.
Okay, that's right.
Continue. You're good.
Okay. So going back to camp. Connor basically just gives a confessional. It's going to be so boring just to watch Emma steamroll, which is kind of what some of the YouTube commenters have been saying. I didn't understand that criticism, because I feel like if someone steamrolls, they didn't get the majority of votes at the final 9 tribal council. But whatever. He talks about Erica's final tribal council chances, where he doesn't think that people like Stefan and Kitty will necessarily vote for her. What about just Erica's final tribal council chances in general, Heather?
I mean, it's hard to say because we haven't seen, we've kind of heard that she has good relationships with people, but we haven't really seen it. I think there's just too many players that unless there's a lot we're really not seeing, I don't think people would vote for her. I mean, I also don't think people would vote for Emma, though. Like, Stefan was cheering when she got voted out. So I don't really know why everyone assumed she would win. But I do think it kind of just speaks to how that group may have been carrying themselves. That even though it wasn't really reality, people still just felt like they were just going to steamroll their way to the end. I think that just kind of speaks to how they may have been coming off to other people, that they were thinking that way when it wasn't really logical to think that that was what was going to happen.
I think as far as you bring a good point with Stefan cheering. With that said, Stefan had exactly like I think maybe 5 hours total with Emma, where he wasn't with her pre-merge at all in either iteration of Carbonado or Wilkeson. And once they merged, it was, everyone was on board for Sean, and then Stefan's the next person out. So as far as the playing field is concerned, I think Stefan was the least concerned about Sarah and Emma, just because he had the least amount of experience with them, and they didn't vote in line with one another.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is too is that I think when people have that impression of just like, oh, like they're gonna steamroll to the end, and this is just kind of like annoying. Like that's not really the kind of attitude that people have towards someone that they necessarily vote for. Like I think that's more like a Boston Rob case where you have to really be up against someone people really cannot find any justification voting for. If you're playing that kind of game and people feel that way about you, you have to find the right, like just total and complete goats to get to the end and have people still vote for you when they just don't want to. And that's the sense that I'm getting, is that people may have voted for Emma if she got there, but she really would have had to have the right person, because it doesn't seem like people wanted to vote for her or didn't want to see her win at all, which obviously everyone wants to win themselves, but still.
Yeah, there were a few people that the jury at that time were a little bit sour towards, and so Emma leaving was part of like what kind of helped remedy that equation. I'm not certain who. I wouldn't have had an issue voting for Emma. I didn't really have that much bitterness towards her. Like we had a good relationship, and even though I thought like the move that she made was wrong, like I still felt like it was like kind of what Connor said in his confessional, that she does exude this wisdom that's kind of beyond her years, that she's played like very impressively. But at the same time, when I got voted off, I'm like, Emma's not winning. She's too good. She's surrounded by people that aren't too good. And Lindsay echoes that in the and I think it was Lindsay that sent in a confessional. She's like, Emma's just so good. Like there's no chink in the armor there, except maybe hubris. But yeah, so I think that for Emma to get voted off, I think the jury like mellowed a bit after that.
Yeah.
Lindsay gives a confessional here, recapping the conversation she had with Kyra and Connor, where they kind of just approached her and said, like, are you really going to let this all happen? And it comes to light that I think Lindsay was the one that pretty much organized this, at the time, 4-3 vote with her, Sarah, Kaya, Connor versus the rest. So I think I give credit mostly to Lindsay, especially because she had to pull in Sarah for this vote. We get another Saranoia confessional, where she says talking to Setu, and she thinks the plan for Connor is just to cover for secretly voting her out. I mean, Sarah is the only person so far in this game to not get a vote so far. And not only that, she hasn't even really been fully targeted to the extent that, like, I feel like even at the pre-swap Carbonado, unless you guys, like, if you guys lost the challenge, it wouldn't have been her. Like, really? So I think she's been easily the most, like, untargeted isn't a word, but like untargeted person so far. She's also the only person after this episode, if you count the Stefan vote, she's the only person left who's correctly voted for everybody who's gone home. So she's, I don't know.
She has?
I think so.
And she's the only one who hasn't received votes, right?
Yeah. Because everyone that she voted with correctly in this vote also voted for Emma at the tribal council that Stefan home.
Right.
So she's turned this position in where she was in technically the minority in that Stefan wrote out, and she's worked her way up to this majority. So I think she's just playing a good game, but just her perception of everything that's going around is what's letting her down a little bit.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I mean, I wonder if maybe that's part of it, where like, you know, she is a fan of the show. She kind of knows the way things go and how cutthroat things are. So when you've gotten that far in the game and you haven't heard anyone targeting you, your name isn't coming up like at all. I think it has to get to the point where it feels like something's off and something's going to give, and it's just going to happen sooner rather than later, because it's crazy to get that far without it happening. So I wonder if maybe that's why that she's just like, this is crazy and no one has targeted me. There must be something that I don't know about. And also the fact that she was saying like all the people who are on the jury had been blindsided. So, I mean, it is a fair point that's like, well, if they got blindsided, I could get blindsided.
Yeah, no, it's a little too good to be true to like expect to come into this game and reach final 6 now and no votes cast against you. Like she could be like, this is pretty much perfect how you want the game to go. And very, very, very few people get to this point with this much success. So congrats to Sarah.
Love Sarah.
Emma gives a confessional where she thinks it's going to be a unanimous vote for Setu, point blank. She's the only person to vote for Setu. But that brings us to Tribal Council, where I think, if I'm right, there's basically 3 plans going on here. Emma thinks it's a unanimous vote for Setu. Erica and Setu think it's going to be Connor. And then the 4 in the majority think it's going to be Emma. So there's 3 different plans that go here, and then 2 of those plans are let go.
How did that even work? Like, how were Erica and Emma not on the same page?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think I was doing the math, and if Emma knew that Setu and Erica were left out of the plan, I think she was hoping. Connor? I think she was hoping. Setu? I think she was hoping Erica and Connor would vote, and Erica and Setu would vote for Connor. Kaya and Connor would vote for like her, and then her, Lindsay and Sarah would vote. So it would be a 3-2-2 vote, which is like pretty crafty and like. That's a very like Suri Fields, like voting out people using the minority, but like
but you don't Suri voting out Setu. Like you do the crazy mind tricks to like get out, you know, like a real Titan. Like it seemed kind of bizarre.
I mean, to be fair, wasn't that trick first used on Courtney Barrett?
Actually, yeah,
not exactly a Titan of the game.
But the fear at the time was that everyone wanted to take Courtney to the final 2, and that was one less spot for Suri to be in. And I don't think that anyone, I don't think that was what was on the minds of, well, only Emma in this case. I don't think Emma was thinking, oh, everyone wants to take Setu and goat him, so I don't need him here anymore. That wasn't her frame of reference. That wasn't her perspective at all.
That was also a 3-2-2 versus 3-2-1. So I think the 3-2-2 is a lot more risky.
Yeah, it's a very like House of Cards plan that you need a lot of moving pieces to come together, and evidently.
I'm on YouTube.
Hello.
Sorry.
Your mother?
My mom is spinning through my room.
Hi, Mrs. Cannon.
Oh God, continue. Sorry for that.
Yeah, it was very like House of Cards. You need so many moving pieces to come together for this, and you need to not tip off the minority, because if the minority catches on, there's 4 people, there's only 3. Like, so many things can go wrong, and just she had none of them really going right. So that sucks for her. But yeah, the only real note I have for Tribal Council is that Setu does the Rob C, Casey Kasem voting confessional for Roger, or in this case, Connor. I just was surprised that he picked Connor of all people to do this confessional to. Like when Rob did it in Amazon, it was for Roger, right? Who he like hated and like just wanted to really rub salt in the wounds. Like Connor's not hateable. Like Connor's nice, and he just picked this guy to just and like smack down.
Yeah, I think Setu just wanted to be referential and like make a reference, and people were going to get that. But like it's such a, there's 2 sides of the coin where like on one hand people do like a throwback. On the other hand, people are like, yeah, but where's your individuality here? Like I want to see Setu. I don't want to see a rehash of Rob Sesternino. I want your own voice here, and not just like a retread of what someone else has already said on the show that you're like an homage to.
I wonder if it was not a coincidence that this happened right after it was revealed that he didn't know what happens in the end. Like that was kind of him trying to like recover from that a little bit by showing that he knew a reference after having it come out with that. He has to know what happens in Final Two. Either that, or maybe he just like had been wanting to make the reference, but he didn't have like an opportunity where it fit, and he was just kind of feeling like he wasn't going to get a chance. I would say it was probably one of those two things.
Well, I want to hear his other voting confessionals now. I feel like they all.
I wish that were a thing with like bonus content or whatever to have these like little clips and
Hunter, work on it.
Yeah,
the footage is there.
Yeah, listen to this entire thing, not just half of what we're saying.
He's not busy. Yeah. He's not. What is he doing at that private university that he goes to?
Just going around buying meat.
Yeah. Emma goes in a 4 to 2 to 1 vote. Takes like a champ. She says
she's very prideful on her way out.
Yeah, she says on her way out that a couple of you needed me as meat shields, basically, and that you're in trouble now. What did you guys think of the move on, like, mostly like Lindsay and Sarah's part to blindside Emma? Because this was really like their decision here.
I don't know if it was a terrible move for Sarah, because it's hard to say, because I don't really know what her end game plan is exactly. No, I don't think it was a good move for Lindsay, though. I think she needed Emma as the meat shield, because that was one of our concerns that we had a few episodes ago, that it was like she's just so in the spotlight, like she's playing a great game, but it's so out in the open that it was pretty much inevitable that she was going to be a target. But with the way that things had been going, Emma had taken that spot. So I think she needed her around for a couple, not too many more votes, but at least 1 or 2 more, just so that she could have had that target, because I don't think she has anywhere else to hide now. Like, who else is she going to hide? Like, is she going to hide behind Erica? Is she going to hide behind Setu? Is she going to hide behind Connor? Like, where is she going to go from here? I feel like she's like the very obvious biggest threat left of the 6 that are there. So I don't think it was a good move for her. I think for everyone else, it was, I don't know if it was a perfect move for all of them, but I don't think it was necessarily a bad move for anyone. So I think that was the only person that statement from Emma was actually relevant for.
In Lindsay's defense.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jaden? Oh, no. In Lindsay's defense.
Oh, shit.
Go, you do it.
Okay.
I'm sitting back.
I don't judge Lindsay too harshly for this, because basically the reason she had to take out Emma was to set herself up in this 4-person alliance with Connor, Kaya, Sarah, and herself. And I feel like that's a pretty perfect position for her to be in, because her and Kaya have discussed being final 2 to the end, whether that remains to be true or not. I feel like her and she's close to Sarah in that group. So really, she's setting herself up in a final 4 where I don't know what Connor would do, probably not take her, but she's setting her up in a final 4 where she has a lot of connections to make it to the end. And even though Emma probably wouldn't have been the perfect person to boot right now, just given the circumstances, had she waited on booting Emma, like, what she would have, I think she would have missed the boat on this 4-person alliance. And then where does she kind of go? So I think it was fine. What about you, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, I just think those players are too smart to take Lindsay to the end. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, you don't think it'll hold?
I just think now these are players who are constantly assessing their position in the game and their odds of winning. And so I think every vote, people are kind of looking around like who's my biggest threat right now? And I think everyone was thinking Emma, but now everyone has to be thinking Lindsay. And so I think maybe for a vote or 2, they'll stick with her, but I think she's going out at final 4, final 3 at best.
The existence of that second idol, though, you leave that unchecked going into final 6. It's an outlier that you can't ignore. And so I understand Lindsay's frame of reference when it comes to, I don't have like that big walking impossible to see, or not impossible to evade meat shield. But an idol is a giant question mark. It's a huge variable. And I think that Lindsay didn't want, the last time Emma played an idol, Lindsay was targeted, even though it was completely ineffective to just write Lindsay's name down haphazardly. And Lindsay didn't Lindsay wanted to eliminate whatever possibilities there were for outside influence, such as the playing of an idol by a minority figure. And so I think that if the idol didn't exist in Emma's pocket, if Emma had not told Lindsay about the idol, Emma probably would still be there, because despite Emma's physical athleticism, she had yet to win an individual challenge. And so there wasn't anything particularly scary about Emma's presence except for the possession of that idol, and perhaps her being the glue that held like Satu apart from Lindsay. Maybe that might have been somewhat threatening as well.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it though, like Erica and said this week, then at Final 6, Emma's playing her idol, right? Like I mean, it's risky, but I think it's a worthwhile risk for Lindsay, especially because if the idol can only be used through Final 5, with the Final 2, it still gives a few more rounds to get rid of her. And I think everyone's going to want to get rid of her. So unless she goes on an immunity run,
even though, like, even like, it's like a very real possibility that Emma could win the Final 6, like the next immunity challenge. And if she does that, she's guaranteed Final 4. And Emma in the Final 4 is just, I feel like that's too late to leave it. Just because she would play her idol at Final 5. So I understand that now maybe it's a little bit premature, but better, I think, to be a little too early than to risk running it way too late. And she just takes it to the end.
Yeah, I more just think of it as it's definitely very risky. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I just maybe I'm completely wrong, but I just have a really hard time seeing how she could possibly get to the end at this point now that Emma's gone. I don't think there's anywhere left for her to hide, and these players are too smart, and there's too many challenges. I don't think she's going to go on an immunity run. I think it'd be really tough for her to get to Final 2.
It's fair. It's a fair assessment.
It's not. I don't think it was a terrible move. It's just, I don't know if it was the best move. We'll see.
I'm sure it was very like close, the pro and con scale, that it wasn't like, oh, obvious move, we get rid of Emma right now. I think for sure that there was some conflict there, and that foursome, she just really wanted to not miss that opportunity of having that group of 4 sync up at that opportune time.
Yeah, I do think another possibility, since Emma was targeting Satu anyways, is that you vote out Satu, who is a big challenge threat. And then, as much as it hurts me to say vote out Satu, but if you vote him out this week, then Emma's not suspecting anything, and you still could blindside her at Final 6. So that'd be an option. That would probably be the safer option than voting out Erica. But it's not. I don't think by any means it's like worst move ever. Like, it's nothing close to that. I just think there's definitely room for the possibility that there was a better move.
And true. Well, speaking of voting out Setu, I commented this on the Reddit thread that I think that with Emma now, Setu's last 5 tribal councils he's been to, besides winning one individual immunity, were Corey, you, Brett, Sean, Kitty, and now this. Every single one of them voted for Setu on their way out. So I think basically in this game, if someone tells you to vote for Setu, like you are fucked.
I got so mad at people as they were leaving, and it was like we had on set, we had the curse like figured out at like, and it was like common knowledge to everyone playing too, because they were also at the tribal council watching people get voted off. And by the time I think that it was Kitty, when Kitty got voted off, you're like, you don't vote for Satu, like she's not going home. The second they tell you to vote Satu, or that's the big plan, you should be like, oh shit, like everything's on fire, it's me, or it's someone that I'm close to. And so it happened. Once it happened with Kitty, and then it happened with Emma, we were just like, now there's no excuses. With Kitty and with Emma, we were like, there's no excuse. The second they told you Satu, you should have instantly thought that your game was up in smoke.
Yeah, it's very like fool me once, shame on you, but then like fool me like 5 times in a row.
Fool me 5 times, yeah.
Like
it's like it's not even that. It's like people fooling you the exact same way that you fooled them.
It's Charlie Brown the football. Yeah, it's
he's very
someone's
just
literally
like,
doing the
maybe
exact
this
same thing
time.
that you just did to someone else, and it's not coming up as a red flag at all. Like Emma wouldn't even entertain the idea that anything other than a unanimous vote for Satu was happening. She refused to even like just play along just for TV purposes or anything in confessional. She was like, nope, Situ's going home. It's unanimous. I don't have anything else to say. I don't care. We're done with confessional. And I'm just like, how did you not
It
even
really
consider? Like, I don't know. Maybe there could be something else going on. Maybe the person that I've been telling everyone else we're voting out when really we're blindsiding them. Like, maybe there's a reason why everyone's telling me they're voting that person out, but nope.
he's really just like Christina charring it like all the way through.
Oh my God.
It's great to watch.
And
He's
everyone's like,
better
maybe
than Christina Cha, though,
he's
I
got to get
think.
voted out sometime. And it's like, no, he doesn't. Also, he does not.
I can't wait to see himself char all the way to the end of the final immunity challenge at the final two.
Yes. The Redemption Island finale that we all
Redemption
wanted that
Temple.
didn't exist. Yeah.
I think that's everything I have for this episode. Do you want to get into predictions?
I have a lot of predictions. I have like the rest of the game predictions.
Oh, really?
I'll be wrong. I'm really hit or miss. I got like Sean and I got Nico, I think, and that was pretty much it.
You've been like in the ballpark though, for the most part.
I knew the Girls Alliance wasn't going to work out, but we all knew that was going to work out.
Well, I was going to ask you a question. Do you want to just kind of like lay out your... tell us how the rest of the game's going. Spoil it for us.
Yeah. So like roughly, I think Erica, maybe it could be Satu. I'd say one of either Sarah or Satu is going home after Erica. Those three going, some combination of those guys. And then I think
is that Erica,
at Final Four.
Erica goes tomorrow, at Final Six, and then...
And then I'll just say, for simplicity's sake, I'll just say Sarah. But I think Sarah and Satu could be switched. But I think that's what's happening in the next two. And then I think at Final Four, Connor is going to convince everyone else to flip on Lindsay. And then I think he's going to be in Final Two and he's going to win. Either against Kaya or Satu with an outside chance of Sarah.
Interesting.
Very good. There we have it.
Put it all out there. Can't wait to see how wrong I am.
Awesome. Alrighty. Brett, do you have anything else to add? We've just hit the hour mark. But yeah.
No, Emma was a very formidable competitor. She was for the most part fun to play with. I think that she's kind of like as far as the 7 deadly sins are concerned, she's the poster child for pride. And I think that, which I don't blame someone with like Emma's skill set and Emma's personality. I think it's like the perfect combination for someone who has a lot of pride, and she should have a lot of pride in herself. But I think that as far as weaknesses go, I think that the pride was a bit of her undoing, and I think it's a cautionary tale for people that play Survivor in the future to not think that you have it all figured out. Or that your superior abilities will carry you through, because it's not solely about ability. It's about that vote, and it's about that social.
I feel like it's kind of like Dr. Peter from Co Wrong, where it's like just his life circumstance and what he does for a living. Like the confidence is needed in real life, like because he's an ER doctor. Like you have to be confident. You can't be like, oh, I don't know, like we could do this. Like you're in the ER, you're dealing with emergencies all the time, so you have to have that confidence. But on the island, it just translated so poorly. I feel like that's kind of, when you said that, kind of reminded me of him, where it's like the confidence may suit her in real life, but it just doesn't translate to the show at all. I mean, entertainment-wise, it definitely does, but not as a player.
Yeah. You can be an ER doctor and lose to custodian Denise. Like there's no recipe for the perfect player. God. Otherwise, Sean would be the winner of this season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think Emma was like such a good addition to this season, and there's going to be a little bit of a void like now that she's gone. I'm very grateful that she played, because she was great television and like totally delivered. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Cool.
Alrighty. I think that's the signing off for this episode. We'll be back next week for episode 10. Should be the same time. Yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Bye.